We're starting our meeting for the ARDC grant repeater project. And Joe will not be joining us. Today's his birthday, and his family wanted him to participate with his birthday party. So it may be a short meeting unless we come up with something. Um, I guess, I don't know if you heard last night, he started making a little spiel last night about the, what's that? Um, that part we're working on.
Circulator.
Circulator, yeah. Hopefully they will make it right on that because we bought everything from the antenna farm. These are my thoughts now, and then we'll get some interaction going on here. But my thoughts are we bought it all from the antenna farm. The repeater, the amplifier, the power supply, and then we got the the other two items that are in the box plus the circulator. And if any one of them didn't was incompatible with the system, I would hope that the antenna farm, especially, could have given us a heads up and not let us put it in service. So hopefully Joe can bring that up when he talks to him again. I don't have any real conclusion yet. We haven't had a formal word back that I know of from the Telway. I think he's working with Telway rather directly on getting it resolved. So, boy, that'd be really a tough one if we got to pay for a new one. And let me see. Al's here. Al, do you have any thoughts? Is there one available that the one that if we were to buy another one, do we know which one we'd buy?
Yeah, we want to order the one that was on the bill of material provided by Mike VPC before anything was ordered. It's even on the bill of material originally, the right one with the right price. And we ended up paying for too much for the other one, the 1530. You know, this is really tough without Joe being here, you guys. This is really unfortunate.
Yep.
Joe and I had a telephone call. We went on Zoom. We tried to discuss what happened. I mentioned to Joe, we got to get our ducks in an order before we call Antenna Farm. We have to figure out what's going on with the PO, why the numbers aren't adding up. And we started to do that, and then Joe got all flustered. He said, well, let's just call him. Let's just call him. Well, I didn't want him to call him that quickly until we were on the same page, trying to figure out where the costs were, the indifference costs between our purchase order and an invoice that we never received from the antenna farm, Len. And we were discussing between us, and then the guy from the antenna farm came on and he was listening to us in the background in our Zoom conversation on Joe's phone. Unfortunately, he was overhearing things that Joe was kind of confused about, basically the duty cycle. And I tried to explain to Joe in numerous ways how the duty cycle affects basically everything. Every piece of equipment has a duty cycle. And if Joe was here, we'd be able to explain it to him a little bit better. Your washing machine, your furnace, your refrigerator, it has a duty cycle. It can only stay operating for so long before it has to rest. If it doesn't, it would burn out. Your motor would burn out.
That's
An
why they
engine
don't
on
let
your
you put
car.
residential equipment or appliances in a laundromat. Eh?
Well, that too, right? And they have more heavy duty motors that can handle more amps. So Joe was getting confused with power output, 100% power and 100% power output to duty cycle. And unfortunately, the way that he was describing it to the sales rep at the antenna farm, the guy John was envisioning that this amateur radio repeater was 100% in 100% transmit mode 100% of the time, because Joe is telling him, it's FM, it's 100% duty cycle. So this gentleman on the other end was having a hard time, or Joe was having a hard time explaining it. So it was like, that's the last thing you want to do. If we're trying to get a part replaced, don't tell them that we overloaded it and our repeater is 100% duty cycle.
Right.
Unfortunately, you know, Joe is getting duty cycle shouldn't be one word. It should be duty and then cycle. And then the duty cycle is the overall time you can run it at a certain amount of power. Because you can have a 45-watt transmitter running 100% duty cycle at 45 watts. It doesn't mean it's 100 watts. So we don't even know for sure what the output of the Quantar is. Joe said 85 watts at one point, and then John, when I talked to him, said it's 125 watts. So we don't know exactly what the output is. A good chance that we might have overdriven it. But what really happened, again, is the crossband link between the UHF and the VHF. The hang time on the UHF causes the VHF site to stay connected so it doesn't get a chance to drop. So when there's long QSOs on the UHF side, the VHF isn't dropping. And that's why the VHF will sometimes drop out of the whole link while the UHF is still operational, because you don't know that you just went over the limit on the VHF site. So if that keeps happening, time and time and time and time again, we're probably, putting too much current through that isolator. Now, the second thing that probably happened with it, if as you recall, the dart went down right around that bad snowstorm that we got all when we had all that inclement weather. So I wouldn't be surprised at some point or something there is a problem wrong with the seal in that antenna and or the coax perhaps. So it did cause reflection from the antenna back down through the circulator, and then without the repeater being able to drop and reset, the power just kept coming back in through the circulator and hitting that load. Hopefully, maybe it's just the isolator, the load isolator that you can probably just unscrew and put back in. But I can't tell, the sales department or the manufacturer that you're running 100% duty cycle at 100 watts, without explaining to them that, it does reset after 2 minutes. So they were under the impression that our repeater is transmitting like a VH, like a broadcast FM or AM broadcast station. So this, yeah, when we're trying to barter for a repair or a replacement, it was a bad way to start off. So anyhow, you know, after the three of us went around and around and around, the gentleman at the antenna farm said, well, get a hold of Telewave. That's under a manufacturer warranty. He agreed that the three spec sheets were all different between their website and the two from Telewave. There's two different spec sheets floating around there. So it wasn't very clear as to perhaps, if we ordered the wrong one, why we did, who did it. All I know is that we did not order the one we were supposed to order. And when I left Joe, he was waiting to get a call back from Telewave, and that was on last Wednesday or Thursday, perhaps. So I have no idea. He didn't mention anything last night that he wasn't going to be here tonight, because I'd like to know the outcome
He
to that
just
as
called me this
well.
afternoon about that he wasn't going to be able to make it. So
So we did end up getting an invoice, Len, from the antenna farm. So Jonathan forwarded it to us, Joe, and he forwarded it to me. And the invoice from the antenna farm, Len, matches the first invoice that Bob wrote. Now, I asked Jonathan, I go, was there a second invoice?
well,
I
now
go, what about,
Bob just sends a purchase order. He doesn't write invoices.
right? So we needed an invoice to know how much for the purchase order, right?
No, because
How did you
he's
know how much to tell Bob to make the check out for?
Well, I wasn't involved. I wasn't in the middle of that, but
Well, the thing is, Len, is that your name is all over both the invoice and the purchase order. And the gentleman at the antenna farm said, "Well, you're going to have to ask
but
Mr.
my
Perkins."
name is the shipping address, not
Well,
the.
on the bottom of the thing is, Len, your name is the only name in contact that we had contact with the antenna farm. So there was
Well,
nobody else in
only
contact
the only contact I had with John at the antenna farm was to clarify the date and time of the shipment. That's the only contact I had with him.
because the PO at the bottom of our purchase order says contact you for any further information needed regarding this shipment or order. So I have no idea where the breakdown is, and how do we even know that we owed them any more money if they didn't contact you directly to say, "Hey, you're $888 short on the duplexer."
Yeah, I
So
think Joe got that message. But,
Joe says he doesn't. He never got it. He
oh,
says, we're paying, this $888 for tariff charges. And the gentleman and the antenna farm said, "Well, everything went up. It's all, it's not just one item. There was tariff charges across the board." And if you go back and look at the purchase order and the bill of material, and you go on their website, the duplexer that we paid $3,900 for was never $3,900 to begin with. It was 4,900, 46, 47, 49. So the $888 difference was the price increase for the duplexer that was never $3,900. So that wasn't because of a tariff charge. And unfortunately, I don't think Joe understands that. We didn't supply them with enough money. Whoever came up with the check and the purchase order, whoever gave the money, said that we were short. The thing is, this is the ironic thing, is the antenna farm. I asked him, I go, "Well, was that the price of the duplexer back in August when we ordered it?" He goes, "Well, there's no way of me ever telling. I can't tell that." It's like, "Well, I'm sure you could if you wanted to." So the bottom line is that they never cashed the $888 check that Bob sent them. So in theory, we paid $3,900 for duplexers that cost $4,900 right now. This the price right now. I think it's $4,800. So they never cash that check, whether or not they do. Obviously, the antenna farm salesman says there's nothing else due. That was the final price. This sale is terminated. It's been too long for us to negotiate anything with it.
Bob can cancel that check.
Well, he could and he should. There
It
should be a
hasn't been,
limit.
if it hasn't been cashed yet, he could cancel the check.
mm,
It might be worth the fee. And if it's been, how many months has it been? If it's been over 90 days,
Since September.
okay, if it's been over 90 days, normally that's all that count. After 90 days, you can cancel the check out.
Right. Exactly. But the problem is, you guys, the invoices aren't adding up regardless. And I can make a little bit of heads and tails. And even Joe said it doesn't make a bit of sense. The pricing differences between the first purchase order and purchase order 2B. And we don't have any other invoices except the original one that shows the duplexer for $3,900. So there's a total breakdown in communication with everything, honestly, from this whole project right from the get-go. And this circulator is just one aspect of it, honestly. We're going to have to start thinking about catastrophic damage control at this point, because from what I see, there's probably not going to be any returning or any more improvement or anything added at the Federation building. Everything seems to have hit a wall, and I don't see any progress being made on that
well,
front.
we're
And secondly, without, this is kind of alarming that we went all this time without having anything in writing, that we're there, blah, blah, blah. We have equipment
back in the
there.
day, you could do a gentleman's agreement, and things were done on a gentleman's agreement. But now the legal environment has changed dramatically, and you try to do things in
Okay.
writing, especially
Right now, think
in
about
real estate.
right, exactly. Now everybody is more concerned with legality and litigation and liability. You know, we're up there with a very old antenna. We're up there with a very old system on top of an apartment building for senior Jewish people. You know, this is probably the worst location, honestly, in today's day and age to have an antenna atop of. We don't know what would happen. How is our grounding system on this antenna? Where does the lightning dissipate to? You know, and this is going to be a problem with trying to find any new location on any kind of a residential building in the future. So, you know, I think in this instance, if we can't get something solidified for us being there, we should probably evacuate it. And we should probably get our shit down off of that roof before something happens and the club is held liable. Now, on top of that, Joe is the trustee to that repeater. So, in essence, Joe is the main person responsible at this point, and he should really be more proactive with getting this resolved as soon as possible. Either we're staying and we can continue to improve that site and station, get it grounded properly, or we should just move on, get the heck out of there. Now, this last week, I've done a lot of research on different sites and locations and contact numbers. You know, I have a lot of ideas and avenues that we could possibly go down, but you know, this is going to take the village. This isn't going to take a team of two or three. This is going to take people branching out and really trying, you know, to negotiate something, to get their foot in the door. And it's going to take, you know, proper emphasis on why we need to be in certain locations. So we could perhaps talk about that further, I guess, next week when everyone's here again. I see Dave's not back. Does anybody know if Dave got eaten by sharks, or is he?
Well, let's talk to Andrew. He might have some information on that. They're usually in communication. Uh, Andrew, you have any thoughts? I see you joined us here.
No, I haven't. I talked with him last week to get the login for the email, but that was it. I hadn't really talked about much else. That was just to get the email login that we're going to use for All-Star.
Okay. Well,
You know, because you know we were talking about trying to get everything labeled, right? Get inventory done, and we're going to have asset tags made up and shipped to you, and you know start moving forward on that front. But you know, unfortunately, until we get a home for this solidified, I really don't know, you know, what else is necessary at this point. You know, we could talk about Andrew. What interfaces are the remote backhaul sites going to need for the
well,
All-Star network? If we want to talk about that,
hang on to that thought there.
right?
I have something I want to present to the group here, and I talked to Joe about it twice now, and he's in favor of it. He's in favor of letting go as a trustee of the repeater, and we've asked Andrew if he'd be willing to take over as trustee of the repeater, and Andrew said he would. So, any discussion before we respond to that? Any discussion? Any objections to Andrew taking over as trustee?
Yeah, I'd kind of like to get it closed out before we switch everything over as far as
Joe will
the
work with you.
location.
Joe will work with you on that.
Is there any do you need time to assume this role, Andrew, or could you do it now?
I mean, I could do it now, but I'd like to kind of have, you know, since we've kind of had a lot of flux in dealing with the various entities at the current location, if we could kind of get it all hashed out before making that transition.
Okay.
I have followed up with Gary, but I haven't heard back. with Gary over at Federation. And I did send Joe an email to that effect earlier today, but never heard back. He never responded telling me that there was he wouldn't be here today. But that's where that stands.
Well, any other questions or comments?
All right. Can I go ahead and share the screen?
Go ahead there,
Yeah,
Al.
as soon as you ask for it, I'll
Okay.
okay it. Go ahead.
Send request. Request has been sent.
You got it.
Let's see like this. Okay, so let's see. Google Earth Pro. Alrighty. Unfortunately, we don't know where the home's going to be. Now, this is, I guess, assuming that we can stay at the main site. And first of all, can everyone see the screen? Can you see Google Earth?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I'm trying to get used to how you do all this. So anyhow, as you can see here in red in Southfield, we have the main site. We have the UHF site up here in Birmingham. Then in Warren, we have the east site. And then over here, we have the airport, the south site. Now, this was mainly done for vector antenna line of sight purposes. So, assuming that we're going to be able to stay here at the DART at its current site on top of the Federation, I was able to project line of sight paths to all these locations, or all two locations mainly, because the UHF site isn't going to be linked into the repeater like it is now. No more crossbanding on the UHF. That should be a standalone. But as you can see here, we'll take the UHF for instance. We could take this line of sight from the top of the building through all the neighborhoods, all the way over to the UHF site on top of the water tower here on 14 Mile Road. So here's our UHF site on top of the water tower at 14 Mile. And you can see the, line of sight's pretty good. There's a couple trees, so that line of sight would be good, but we don't need it basically for vector antennas. We're not going to utilize that as, a link like we would the remote sites. And the same thing with the other remote receive sites, the one up to Hoover and 11 Mile on top of the Henry Ford building. We have an antenna right up here. It's right here on top of here, and I can only get it as high as the building. Unfortunately, it doesn't go into space, so you can't use an isotropic point in space. But here, the east site above sea level height is 732 feet, and the ground level is 627 feet. So the actual above ground level height of that antenna is 105 feet. And I've calculated that for that and the south site, which is horrible. It's only at about 20 feet off the ground, fortunately. It's on a very low mast at this point. And I think that Larry was talking about a new site on the premises that's going to be on a new hangar, and it will be a higher hangar. So that'll be a benefit. Right now, it's only 22 feet above ground at the feed point. So that's a horrible line of sight vector for any kind of 5 gigahertz, microwave antennas that we want to use there. In fact, it's basically getting blasted into the trees just north of the airport. So most of that is into the ground, in the trees, a lot of foliage, a lot of obstruction, making it back into the DART. But, we don't know, honestly, unfortunately, at this point, if that's going to be a possibility, if we're going to be able to stay here. It's going to be nice to know one way or the other. But if we don't get to go there, there is something else, possibly another avenue that we might be able to work on for another building location. Now, I know the Wayne County team, ARPSC, and I don't know about Macomb, but I don't know if the Oakland County is as prepared as the Wayne County. But the Wayne County has what they call hospital jump kits. And I'm curious now, I see we have at least two ARPSC members logged in tonight here, John and Hugh. Now, a possibility for us to find a new site might be able to utilize some hospitals. So here are the main hospitals that we would probably want to work within. And I'm not sure how many of them have emergency jump kits in them. So ideally, if you wanted to be in an ideal location to cover everything, Pontiac is the location you want to be at. Trinity Health, Pontiac General, which actually is pretty high. It's at 957 feet ground level, and the antenna is about 100 feet higher than that, so it's over 1,000 feet. It would get out really well. McLaren, unfortunately, is surrounded by buildings. So to put an antenna on top of the McLaren, boy, you got a big building to the west, and you got another big structure, some kind of AT&T structure, I believe, because they have these microwave antennas here. All these buildings or structures are usually utilized for either hospitals or cell companies. You won't see anything on top of apartment buildings, unfortunately. So
you were
the
asking,
only okay, go ahead.
I was going to say, you were asking about hospitals. ARPSC does have permanently installed radios in most of the hospitals in Oakland County.
Right,
But it's
but
for ARPSC, they are programmed with their frequency and also the DART frequency and Clarkston.
what was the second frequency, John?
Clarkston and
Oh,
Hazel Park, Clarkston, and ARPSC.
okay, what club do we belong to?
Hazel Park.
Okay, well, there you go. So if we
They're
could
they're
utilize
maintained. They're maintained
right,
by the county and Ken. I think his name is Ken out at ARPSC.
right. Well, it's an avenue. It might be one worth pursuing, if we could do that. The other option, unfortunately, is, well, I don't know about unfortunately, the only other option would be at this point would be to utilize commercial towers. So I've done quite a bit of research on the towers, and two towers that are right behind the DART right now, and who knows how much they're causing interference. Here's the DART. Here's one antenna tower, and it's let's see if I get to where's the little thumbnail? There you go. I did a lot of research on these and got contact informations, telephone numbers, who they are, who owns them, call signs, and some of them have more than one entity, like the DART, but some of them is absolutely, probably obsolete too. So we have a commercial tower here that I could have sworn John Teagarden at one point said that we still had an antenna left up there.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
think we
know.
do on the second white section.
Okay, so hang on.
There's one hanging off there on I think it's the second white section up. I was noticing that the other day, and it looked like
Let me go down the road a
like
little
something
bit.
that could be used for an old 2 meter repeater.
Were you on the side street side?
I was walking down 10 Mile.
Let's see. Because I did see tower. There we go. I see up here. I see
There's a little arm on the side hanging
well,
off
they
of it.
got a lot of standoffs. They have at least
Yeah,
three of them right here. You
I
got
think that's
one,
it.
two, and three.
I think that first one where you said one.
Okay. Yeah. So there's the tower. There's the three standoffs, and they're on a good side. They're to the north. They're not to the south, and they wouldn't be obstructed by the structure. And of course, you got all the microwaves there. So I didn't know if that was perhaps the antenna that, or the structure that John was talking about, or there was another one that I thought that where I get to my north, get my bearings straight. The dart was also on, was over at the Green Acre site. Let me find out. Where'd you go?
Oh, that
Green
radio
Acre.
station.
Yeah, yeah. Back out to it quicker. There it is. Let's see.
That was a long time ago.
Okay.
WEXL Country Radio.
So here's the WMC site right now. And under this site, and this is pretty interesting, the contact info is Odyssey, CBS Odyssey. We have contact phone number. We have an email address. She's the director of spectrum management. And sometimes the licensee and contact info are different on these sites. Everything looks to be the same, but also on this tower is the Ferndale Public PD department with Tim Collins, probably an old chief of police. And their frequency is 154.74 call sign. Well, the thing is that now all the public service, police departments, fire, everything is on P225 phase 2 in Oakland County. So this,
Right. 154.74 is not used by the police for anything.
yeah, and I've been monitoring it now for 2 days straight. So on this tower, already erected, but unfortunately on the wrong column, is a 4-bay folded dipole antenna. And that is for 152 megahertz. You know, I'm not saying we'd want to use it, but perhaps, we could take it and swing it over there to the north side if we could get access to it, or put up our antenna there, the new one, right? So this is another option, perhaps, is to get a hold of this site, try to get something going. But for any of these sites, and there's actually one in downtown Royal Oak that's interesting too, which I find really wild. To my north side, I can get my bearings straight. County of Oakland has a site in Royal Oak. Where's that big ass tower at? Oh, here it is. Yep. This tower right here in Royal Oak. Let me get to the street view real quick.
That's the AT&T building.
Right. So there's a whole nother tower here, AT&T. Yep. And there's standoffs there already. Who knows? Someone's on there. Someone gets lucky. Who's to say we can if we try? But this site actually had something interesting. What was it? It was, County of Oakland. They're actually, I guess, I don't know, controlled, or this tower or whoever is controlled by what's called the radio shop at the County of Oakland. And I'm curious, John or Hugh, are you guys familiar with the radio shop through Oakland County or ARPSC or EOC or anything like that? Have you ever heard of the radio shop at oaklandgov.com?
I've heard of a radio shop, but not at that address. I don't know.
Okay.
They have one
All right.
in Pontiac, because ARPSC, the one deficit they have is they cannot work on any of their antennas or radios without somebody from the Oakland County Radio Department with them. That makes it really hard. If anybody remembers how hard it was to get to the east side when it was at Todd's backyard, it was a great location, but he was never home.
Right.
So it was really hard to get access to the radio or the antenna to work on it because he was never home. Well, ARPSC has the same problem with Oakland County. They're not available a whole lot. So if they have something go down, they have to depend on Clarkston and Hazel Park, because it could be weeks before they get access to their equipment.
Well, unfortunately, I don't think a lot of people are too conducive to helping out old amateurs because they think the cell phones are going to be everything they're going to need, or DMR and P225 or P25 phase two. I don't know. We do have perhaps, and I wish Larry was here tonight. Um, was KE8 WXT Larry, Colonel Larry, right? Uh, Civil Patrol Larry over on the
LA.
east side.
Yeah, we know. I know.
So what we have over here in Lester's backyard, and I've mentioned this before, but no one believed me,
My
is that
backyard.
in your backyard, that big
Oh,
effing,
across 696.
that, that big beautiful tower at the end of your street that you can see from your backyard. This tower.
That's the city of Detroit, I thought.
That's correct. Yes, you're absolutely right. And that's the city of Detroit's tower. Oh boy, let me get out. Doesn't like when I zoom out like that.
You know,
Um,
all these towers are nice, but I think it's a lot of cost prohibitive to the dark because it's going to cost a lot of money to have an antenna put up at these sites.
well, I don't know if we could get into here, but I do know that Larry does have connections with the city, um, in some form or another. So I don't know if there would be a way for him to tap, perhaps if we can get in on this structure or not. These are all long shots, but I think inevitable in the long run, what we're going to probably have to do is compile some kind of a letter, emphasizing our ARPSC needs and how we can benefit a hospital or, a communication
Educational
tower for the
Association.
city. What's that?
Educational, like a school or a college.
Anything like that.
Yeah.
We should probably have it compiled in a couple different ways. One for educational school, one for a communication tower, one for a hospital. Just tweak it individually for each application.
Yeah,
The hospital jump kits. I don't know if we can somehow, we're part of that team. Can we commandeer like the Royal Oak, Beaumont Coral, and just put our antenna up there, utilize it, and then also utilize it for the jump kit. Now I know that's on probably VH or UHF, I believe. I'm not sure if it's on VHF or UHF, so that would
the
give us a reason.
ARPSC is using VHF.
Okay, well then good, fine, yeah,
But
we can
my
utilize it.
question
Yeah.
is, this is all nice, but this is not really part of our current project of updating what we have. And I'm thinking that there's a good possibility that once we have the new antennas up, the new radios, that our increased coverage may affect where we want to, maybe add stuff later on down the road. So let's get
Right,
this, once we get this project done, then we need to
John.
see
The
what
problem, John,
areas
that's
that we have that
oh
we can
okay.
add to future antennas and stuff like that. But right now, let's finish the project that we're on.
That's a good idea, John.
Where you gonna? Yeah, it is. That's a great idea. Okay, well then, forget all this hypothetical situation. We're just gonna go ahead and assume that we're gonna be okay at the Federation building. John, is that it? We're just gonna
I,
go ahead and
well, that's
move
our plan.
everything up
That's our
there.
plan for right now. If something happens, then we have to take action. But if you start having 400 plans for 400 possibilities, we won't get anything done.
Well, if you wait until the last minute without having plans, John, you're definitely not going to get anything done because now you're going to have to find a new location pair or to have this pair approved somewhere else.
Yeah, but didn't
And
Gary
that's
say that we can pretty much be assumed that we're going to be able to be okay where we're at?
He said they want to keep us there.
Why
Gary,
don't you?
Gary wants to keep us there, but Gary doesn't have final pull on that. And the
right.
person that does has not been responding.
Yeah.
Why don't you wait till Andrew gets acclimated
And then that was
and
where I was
let him?
getting that's where I was getting at with Joe is that his ex, who is a former ham, um, knows this person over at JSL, but Joe has not decided not to bring her in.
They don't look good. They look pretty grim. I think we waited too long. We should have acted when this thing was a problem to begin with. We should have
That's fair.
jumped on it, and we should have supplied them with information and reassuring, what our intentions are, instead of just saying, well, let's take the next couple months off while the lawyers golf. That was the wrong avenue to go at that point in time in this juncture. So right now, John, your idea is valid, but we don't have a home. We can't just put stuff up there and not be guaranteed to access it or to take it back down. I agree. Yeah. Let's just stick with the plan,
Yeah.
John. But the plan changed, unfortunately.
Yeah, I don't think we should be putting equipment up there until we have permission. That's for sure. That's what I guess Gary or Mark and Gary can get working on. Either get permission or we don't have permission.
Well, I think both of them, Mark and Gary, are they're kind of at a dead end right now at this point. They've asked, they haven't gotten a response. It doesn't sound proactive. It doesn't sound like positive.
We're at a dead end. The club is offered.
Okay, go ahead.
Anyways, Gary had said that he had some interest by some of his staff that might want to get ham licenses, and so that offer is still open to his people. But because I'd still like to help them out where we can. He's still trying, but he hasn't heard anything either. Maybe something will change. I don't know.
Why didn't you let
Hang on.
Andrew get the meeting together with all the parties concerned?
So, Mark, do you know who? Okay, let me go back to screen share because I don't know who some of these people are, Mark, and I don't know, maybe there's another avenue here. Let me back to Zoom.
Well, it's been offered to them, Al, that we'd give them a presentation if they want a presentation.
Alrighty.
Or, whatever else they need. We'd get the insurance. If they need the insurance. We'd do whatever they need, but we haven't heard any answers back.
So right now, from all the information I gather, everything, let me get this thing out of the way. Maybe. Nope, wrong one, of course. All right.
But anyway, Al, I want to say we looked into some of those towers. If you remember, with Phil, I don't know his new call sign. We were looking at the fire department tower out there in West Bloomfield, and they would only allow professional people to go up and put the antenna up and wire it and all that and install the equipment. And that was just to put the antenna up and run the coax with their climbers. They were looking at about $7,000, and that didn't include installing our equipment. And then access was very limited. And then the few other towers we kind of partially looked into, everything was for rent or lease, and nobody would really give us a solid price. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, well, we might have to really pound the bricks and hit the streets and rattle the cages to get quotes and stuff, just like we had to with the darn Motorola. I contacted probably about 6 or 7 different places and only got quotes back from half of them. But yeah, sometimes you have to be persistent, and this is why we have to reserve any kind of funds we have left, perhaps for having an antenna installed wherever. Now, back at the Jewish Federation building, there's a number of contact informations and a number of different services that were up there. I don't know how far back they dated, but the one name that keeps popping up, Mark, and I don't know if you know him, or a couple names actually, is Jonathan Richmond. And I don't know if that's a name that you've contacted or if that was a friend. You said Gary, so obviously.
No, I don't know who Jonathan Richmond is. He might be someone, an old building manager over there at that building, or someone in building services for JSL. I'm not sure.
Right.
But
They do have
the name I was given was Nancy. I don't know the last name. And over there, and that's the CEO. I think it was the CEO of JSL. And that's actually where the problem is at the CEO level.
All right, yeah, because there's another girl here, Yona, or another man, I don't know, Yona Przynski, and then Mike Williman, but I think that was for the old telephone equipment that was up there. And the last one, or another one I saw was this Christine Hollenbach, uh, Jewish Federation of Metropolitan Detroit. And the last one I saw was really wild. Was oh, he's at the bottom here, Scott Adams, and he owns Adams Electronics out there in South Lyon, and he has a repeater over there on Beck Road. But again, this could be all
I think he
antiquated
was
equipment.
supplying them with their communications equipment at one point.
Okay, because if you
I
down at the
believe that
bottom,
was, is he out like on Wixom Road or something?
right? Yes, he's on
Yeah, they
Beck
were
Road.
getting, the Federation had a contract to get their all the radios and the repeater equipment through him for a long time.
Okay, so that's why he was a contact info at one point. In that
I
time,
believe that's probably the reason. In fact, I think I even have his business card upstairs from when I was working out there.
okay, all right. So a lot of this information is probably old and it has never been purged from the
No, that's all
FCC
old stuff.
files.
They change people all the time.
All right. Now, Joe also mentioned, going out here to Oakland University. Um, and let's see, OU ground level is at 904 feet. You know, the problem when we're getting out here in this area, we got another hill line back here that goes straight across. So you're not going to get out too much further north. Um, right here is the highest point in Oakland County. It's 1,038 feet. Mount Sheldon and Stony Creek is 940. You get further north, it gets even higher, but now you're approaching Genesee County. The Clarkston repeater, that's at this is really high. It's at 100. The ground level is, well, actually 1162, but it's about 122 feet above ground. Yeah, over here was where it was recommended to us, or to Len, by Greg, WAVIJ, at the OCC Highlands, old Highland location in Oakland Community College in Highland. They own this whole campus, the county does. And, they're even higher. The ground level out there is 1,020 feet. But regardless of getting the repeater out in that location, it's getting into it from here. We're not going to have any, if the HTs that everyone's using now can't make it into the Dart and we're only 3 miles away, we're definitely not going to be able to make it from here out to OCC or Oakland University without another remote receive site in between, or utilizing the main, which we don't know if we're going to be able to utilize anymore. So, we're at a stalemate, honestly, right now. We can't do a damn thing further with anything. The only thing we can maybe do is shore up the receive sites. What interface do we need to connect the old Olinko transceivers that are taped together with duct tape? One receives and it has a piggy tail into the transmitter on UHF to get back into the Dart. We have a brand new antenna that was put up here a few years ago. It's a little bit overly done. It's like the length of the station master. For a receive, that's all it needed for. It was a receive. And of course, we have a UHF link, right? Back in there on the UHF side. But I don't know, do we need any interface for that receive site to be backhauled now on All-Star? What kind of a patch cable that's going to be needed there, and the one on the south site that has a Micor at the airport, which is very compromised. It's way too low to be an efficient receive site. It's only going to probably work for a few people in that area. So, the antenna is 22 feet off the ground. You probably got maybe a radius of this far. So even putting all the money into a backhaul out there to get into the dart via All-Star, that antenna is extremely compromised. So it's not really doing a lot in its present location. So, there's where we have basically everything around here. Now, turn off all the other sites here again so you can get an idea where we're at. Turn off the hospitals. Oh, where's the towers? Towers up here. And tower. Well, let's pass the towers. Oh, towers in. That's what we have currently. Unfortunately, I don't know. Unless anybody has any other words of encouragement. I mean, I don't know, what else we can really do at this point. We should come up with a letter and get it ready to be mailed out to all those locations or possible suitors for the dart. But getting on top of a residential building, I don't think that's going to go over well, not in this day and age. But anything that's going to attract lightning up there, oh my God! Now we got to make sure our insurance is going to cover anything. And are reliable right now for being on top of the Federation. We're just there on a gentleman's agreement. We're kind of like pirating, right? Like bootlegging. Is it their responsibility for not kicking us out? If something happens, the antenna draws in a strike. We don't have it grounded good enough. I mean, I don't even know how Franken repeater is grounded. All I know is that it's a bloody mess. It just scares me looking at it.
Have you been up there, Al?
Yes, I have once, and I didn't want to go back. I ran out of that building as fast as I could. Hang on.
Most buildings like that have lightning protection built into them anyway. Most, not all, but most.
The building, yeah. What about the antennas on the building? Where does the
Well,
dissipation go?
It goes through the ground rods. That's how lightning protection works. It doesn't attract lightning. It dissipates the static electricity that's surrounding the building.
Yeah, the ground rod. Is the antenna properly grounded?
That's a good question.
Okay, John, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is, or yeah, or
Well,
I don't know, or
No, but I'm saying the building and the area around the building is protected by the ground rods that are part of the building structure that dissipate the static electricity, so it makes our antenna less of a target.
okay, well, could work absolutely in theory, right? Antenna doesn't follow theory sometimes. It does whatever.
That's true.
Lightning, she does whatever the hell she damn well pleases.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes with the more ground or the more conductivity to ground, the better path you provide, the more attractive it is.
Yeah.
Fortunately. So I guess, yeah, I don't know, what kind of interface do we need at the remote sites? That's a question I have for Andrew. I don't know if Andrew's still here. It looks like he's gone already. Alrighty. Well, you know what? This has been fun, but until we get the village involved, I don't know what we can do. That's where we stand.
So Mark, there's absolutely no one at the building other than Gary that's willing to even talk to us?
From what I can understand, Gary has sent the emails up to the CEO and she has not responded even to him. And he's sent it a few times.
Wow.
but she hasn't responded on this issue. I sent him another email today. I have not heard back from him yet. I'll try to give him a call tomorrow, but yeah, he hasn't had much success yet either.
Well, I don't, it's about 8 o'clock now, so if we don't have anything else to discuss, we can,
And I need you to check your email. I need you to check for anything that came from the antenna farm.
my email?
Your email from August. Check your past August files. We got to find out where that additional invoice came from. So that, I don't know. Oh boy, I'm having a hard time, you guys. I really am. We're running around in circles. People are dropping balls. Shit's not getting done. Everyone's being too lackadaisical, I think. And unfortunately, this should have been corrected at the get-go. I mentioned this back in May of last year. We need to validate that we have access and authority to be where we're at, in so many words. And Joe was, yeah, it's taken care of. It's all good. It's taken care of. That's what he said. That was the famous last words. And unfortunately, honestly, Len, I think you're going to you're going to own a nice repeater system probably in a short while.
Appreciate your efforts there. Al. Anything else? Okay, let's call it a night, and we'll meet again next Monday night. Hopefully we've heard from the antenna farm or from Telway between now and then. And who knows, maybe something else will pop up. Thanks again for taking your time. Thanks, John, for recording. I guess
73.
we call it a night. Thank you.